My name is Lisa Johnson, and I'm the Associate Vice Chancellor for Enrollment Management here at UMass Boston. And it's my privilege to welcome all of you to the 6th Annual Media Matters Luncheon for Teachers and Advisors. Thank you all so much for coming and joining us today. The University of Massachusetts Boston sponsors this great day with our neighbor, the Boston Globe. Many people have worked so hard to put this day together, but there are two individuals I really want to acknowledge because they have really gone above and beyond for the day. Those two individuals, one is Kathy Downs, who is a retired employee from the Boston Globe, and the other is Michael Todorsky, who is an employee at UMass Boston in enrollment management. The two of them have just worked day and night to put everything together. And now it is my privilege to introduce to you our provost. You know, when I was thinking about what I wanted to tell you about this great man, I said to myself, I am not going to tell you all about all of the academic degrees he has earned, nor am I going to talk to you about all the books, articles, commentaries, and reviews he has written. Instead, I thought I would tell you about the person who holds UMass Boston's most senior academic position. Dr. Winston Langley loves this campus and the community of people in it. He is, without doubt, one of the people who has transformed this campus. He gives and continues to give to us so much of his life to create a learning environment that really is the best for our students and our faculty. He cares deeply about human rights and the evolving nature of the international systems which make up our global environment. We are truly blessed to have this amazing educator leading UMass Boston's transformation from a regional institution of higher education to a national model for an urban public research university. Dr. Langley.
After that introduction, I don't know what I'm going to be able to say to you, but I'd like to begin by saying good afternoon to our teachers and our very important guests that are through my share our table, and to say to you that we are very happy you have been able to join us here at the University of Massachusetts Boston, which happens to be the only public research university in this city, a city of many important universities. It is also a pleasure for the university to host this third annual writing conference with the Boston Globe. Thank you for escorting your students here today so that they can be part of and learn from distinguished poets and journalists, and scriptwriters and bloggers and cartoonists and novelists, and among others. It is particularly fitting for this conference to be hosted by this university. We have a current enrollment of over 15,400 to be exact, graduate and graduate students. And our students praise the university's small classes, its diversity. And here we think of diversity not only in terms of ethnicity, religious affiliations, nationality, racial identities, etc., but diversity in the beliefs that one finds on campus, in the multiple articulations that must define any great university in orientations and experiences, etc. We also speak of the opportunities for an education of rather exceptional quality at what people will call a great price. Our faculty is distinguished for their commitments to our students, and we boast what is a 15-to-1 faculty to student ratio with an average class size of about 28. The university embodies a commitment to making higher education financially possible for our students, and does so by offering to meet 91% of all student needs, by recognizing past academic achievements and success, and by awarding $3 million and more in merit scholarships. You should know that our faculty, who are very much committed to their students, as said, have rather important achievements, and they are augmented by their commitment to our students. We have the Pulitzer Prize winning faculty. We have Guggenheim members of our faculty. We have Fulbright scholars as members of our faculty. We have Rhodes scholars as members of our faculty. And if you were to look at the venues through which they publish, you know, it's a Cambridge University, it's Temple, University of Chicago Press, Columbia University. And when students join us as a campus community, they have many opportunities to make connections with the faculty and other students. There are more than 100 academic programs that await them, and they can choose therefrom. So you have a comprehensive liberal arts curriculum that sits as sort of the middle of the university, that allows one to explore the universe of ideas, as befits a university. And of course, from athletics, student organization and centers, to newspapers, literary journals, community service organizations, to our cafes and our lounges and our galleries and our rinks and our courts and our fields and science labs, computer labs, fitness centers, dining areas. There's a basis for diversity of experience in other areas. I am most pleased, however, and this is very pertinent to your work here today, to say that from the standpoint of this campus, we subscribe to Article 19 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which speaks of the right of individuals to receive, seek, and impart information through any media, regardless of frontiers. I think any great university must represent a center of this kind. We strive to be. I am happy, therefore, to be able to join you today and to have a special welcome for you, and hope that this will be one of the many visits you'll make to campus, and that you'll come to know and enjoy this university and its students. Use us as a resource as you help your students prepare for higher education. This is a welcoming community committed to meeting the needs of our students who want the highest quality of education at the university level and the research university level that is accessible, convenient, affordable in an extraordinary educational environment for Boston and elsewhere. Thank you.
Boston Globe has benefited from the extraordinary talents of Robert Powers. Currently the Vice President of Marketing and Communications, Bob Powers has worked for the Globe since 1981. He oversees public relations, consumer research, internal communications, and marketing communications for the Globe as well as for Boston.com. During his career at the Boston Globe, Bob has worked in a variety of areas including promotion, market research, business development, strategy, and public affairs. He has been a long supporter of this day and this event, and this year has given us even way more of his personal time and commitment to help sponsor the day. So with that, let me introduce to you Bob Powers.
Hi, good afternoon. I just have a very simple message of welcome. We're very proud to sponsor Media Matters, and we're very delighted to partner with the University of Massachusetts, Boston. They're not only our neighbor, but they're our intellectual partner and our public service partner as well. And this is but one of the many programs that we've enjoyed working with them on. So welcome, and thank you. Thank you all for coming. I know it's not easy to break away from your classrooms and gather the students together and spend a good part of the day here. So thank you. Thank you for that effort. As you can see, not every school in the Commonwealth participated, so you're special, you put in the effort, and we really appreciate that. And we have selfish reasons for that. Part of the reason we sponsor and partner with UMass on this program is selfish. We want to inculcate another generation onto the virtues, the values, and the hard work that goes into journalism. And by participating today and across a multiple of media, we hope that students do get a better understanding of what it takes to produce an objective and a fair and a thorough report on important issues that face our community. The second issue that is selfish is that maybe one or two of them will actually become journalists of the next generation, and maybe they'll work for the Boston Globe and or Boston.com. It's part of the reason why we really believe in not just having workshops on print journalism, but also television and blogging and journaling and essays for college, is that it is a multimedia world. And every professional at the Globe now is versed in multiple ways of communicating, whether it's in the print, which remains our primary focus, but also online on Boston.com. And that gives journalists a great opportunity to expand on their stories, to tell their personal stories about how the reporting came together, to go into video clips and photography of stories to give our readers a deeper understanding of what's going on in the community. So, one, we hope that students walk away with an understanding of what it takes and to filter through what is polemic versus what is reporting. And then secondly, to hope that some of them will become journalists. And third, really, is that we hope that they'll walk away with some immediate skills that they can employ back at school and when they go to college. So that's all I really have to say. I just am delighted to be representing the Globe and give you welcome from our publisher, Chris Mayer, and all the employees at the Globe, many of whom are here teaching workshops. But just to say thank you again. We're really proud of this program, and of course you are the center of the program. So welcome and thank you.
You know, Bob mentioned the variety of schools here. We actually have 125 different high schools represented here today, and we have colleagues from Canada, which I think, a group that come every year to join us on this special day. And not only from in-state of Massachusetts, but we actually have some schools here from out of state. So the numbers of different people that we're touching through this day is just amazing. Now, it's my privilege to introduce our very special guest. Liz Walker is an award-winning television journalist, a documentary film producer, an entrepreneur, a humanitarian currently working in war-torn country of Sudan, a 2005 graduate of Harvard Divinity School, and an ordained minister in the African Methodist Episcopal Church. Liz has chosen to combine her communication skills with her passion for serving the world. To New Englanders, she will always be known as Liz. After 32 years as a television news journalist, nearly 20 of those anchoring WBZ Television's evening newscast right in Boston. Liz has most recently hosted a special television magazine program called Better Living with Liz Walker on WCVB Television in Boston. And she is an amazing woman that we are so, so happy could join us for this special day. Thank you, Liz. Come on.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everybody. Oh, no. That's not going to work for me because I am a preacher in the African Methodist Episcopal. We have what we call and response. You see, if you can sum up the whole Bible in those two words, God calls, you're supposed to respond. Now, I have no illusions that I'm not God or anything, but I do represent God. So when I say good morning, good afternoon, please help me. So let's try it again. Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. Oh, praise God. Thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here with you. I'm delighted to be back with you. I had the honor of participating in this wonderful couple of days of writing and creativity last year with these two institutions, the Boston Globe and UMass Boston. So it's a delight to come back again. I have a caveat here, however, two. First of all, I'm a media person and a preacher, so you could be here forever. Y'all gonna be trying to sneak out the door as I read. And the other thing, as a preacher, I only have one sermon. You see, I'm on the ministerial staff of Bethel AME Church, so I'm not the pastor, so I go around and preach and speak different places. So you only have to have one sermon, because you never go back to a place. So coming back here today could be dangerous. I did want to speak to you, not preach, but speak to you today about concerns on my heart about what it is that you and I do. I was speaking with a young man who works with young people in the city of Boston and has been working with young people for many, many, many years about the amazing and horrible and tragic violence that has plagued our communities for the past few months. And I asked him, what's the problem? What are these kids, what's happening here? What are they doing? And he said, and it was profound to me what he said, the problem is they're not getting enough love. And I thought that was just really simple, but profound. You see, when I came out of divinity school, that was my focus. I wanted to know all I could find about love. So the only sermon I preached was about love. And I found that the congregation grew tired of it, so I put it away. I'm going to bring it back because I think it resonates during these times. Love is perplexing, it is difficult, it has plagued us throughout history. It is a word that is huge and small. Cultural critic Bell Hooks writes that talk of love, though, particularly in a public environment, makes people nervous or scared. It's easier for us to talk about loss than love. So I'm going to take a risk this afternoon and tell you what I think we need to do with this notion of love. We confuse love We confuse it with power. We confuse it with greed. We confuse it with submission. We confuse it with desire or lust. Our children are thoroughly confused by it. Psychologist Erich Fromm says in the book, The Art of Loving, love is the solution to the problem of human existence. So I'm not even going to take this from a religious standpoint, but from a psychological one. So seeking this language to describe love so that we can frame our talk this afternoon about that. Now, the last time I heard anything in the popular culture worth listening to about love, it was in the 60s, right? You people are too young for that. I know, I was in television news for 300 years before most of you were born. But back in the 60s was the last time Motown was singing about love. My Cherie Amour, endless love, never can say goodbye, your precious love, how sweet it is to be loved like you. Those songs are no longer in existence. I don't hear people talking about love in any way. I try to listen to hip-hop music. I have no idea what they're saying. And when I recognize a word, I'm embarrassed, right? So they're not singing love, and if they are singing love, it doesn't make sense to me. The only song I could find in modern times about love was Put a Ring on It. And I'm not clear what that means either. So I don't want to push that in the pulpit. Country songs talk about love. I love country music, I really do. I didn't before, but now I go, when I'm feeling down, I just go on Google and try to get some titles. So I've got some titles for you in country music in their ode to love. Kick him to the curb and keep on smiling. I got the hungries for your love and I'm waiting in the welfare line. That's my personal favorite. My wife ran off with my best friend and I sure do miss him. When you wrapped my lunch in a roadmap, I knew you meant goodbye. We are confused about love. There are certainly different types of love, eros and philia, and that does not straighten out our confusion. We have yet to figure out how to be brothers and sisters, and we certainly don't like to discuss sex publicly. I heard a wonderful sermon once that said the best word to take on for love was care. But care is not enough. It's a component of love, but it's not enough. Bell Hooks described a dysfunctional and loveless childhood in a caring family. So you can receive care without love. Now, Hooks came up with a definition that I'm going to use today because I think it works. Love is the will, that means it's the choice, the will to nurture our own and someone else's spiritual growth. And some of the components that she includes are care, commitment, trust, responsibility, respect, and knowledge. Now, I give those words to you because you're teachers, and those are the words you use. I'm sure you use them every day because that's what you give. So my premise here this afternoon is that the love is here. People say, well, the parents aren't giving them love because either the parents are working 4 or 5, 6 jobs, or the parents are 12 and don't know what love is themselves. So the next line must be education, because these notions of care, commitment, trust, responsibility, respect, and knowledge, that's what we get from schools. So how do you channel that love to your students? And what difference does it make? There is an African proverb, I can only be the best of what I am when you are the best of what you can be. Ubuntu. I can only be my best when you're the best. That's why it's important, I think, to talk about love. Because when you define love, it's about the best of what we are, the best of what we are to each other. Why is it important to talk about it? Cornel West says that justice is what love looks like in public. So when you talk about love on a broad scale, you're talking about justice. I've been working for the last 10 years in Sudan. I went there as a journalist on a story, but I saw inhumanity to the extent that it changed my life. And so I helped co-found a young organization called My Sister's Keeper, and we've been responding to the needs of one particular village in Sudan. We are helping women and children rebuild their lives and their communities. We are focused on education, and we're focused on micro-enterprise projects, and we're doing some peace advocacy because that's what the community wanted to do. Fewer than 1% of African women in Sudan are educated. Fewer than 1% of African women in Sudan are educated. So there's a big job there. It's a country that has been at war against itself for decades, and millions have been killed and millions have been displaced. But I have learned some of the most amazing lessons about education and about love in Sudan. My first trip there, we talked to the people about what they wanted for their communities. And we talked to some of the girls. The women brought their children to us. And we asked them what they wanted to be. And one of the things the girls said was, I want to be a teacher, because they were just now beginning to go to this school that was under the trees, and we hadn't built the facility yet. So one of the girls wanted to be a teacher. Another wanted to be a doctor. But one girl in particular really struck me because she said she wanted to be a pilot. Now, Sudan is a place of unbelievable deprivation. There is no infrastructure there. There has been war and famine, and people are literally living on the edge. So you wonder how a girl who has nothing could have such high hopes. Well, our guides told us that the plains are the highest things that the children see. And so this child was striving for the highest thing she saw, the pilot. I would argue that how you look at love affects what children see at the highest order of their lives. I don't know why this little girl decided that pilot was the thing she wanted to be, but there was something in her spirit that reached and soared for heights. That's why we need to talk about love. Nobody's talking about it in this culture. And I would argue that some people in Sudan might have a closer reality to it than we do. I was talking to one of the women in my church who was telling me about another church where the children are struggling, a whole group of children are struggling with their sexuality, and they're afraid to talk about it to the pastor of that church. The church has decided that homosexuality is absolutely wrong, and there will be no conversation just because there's the law, and we won't talk about it. This young woman is very frustrated because she thinks that somehow we are stifling these children by not at least discussing it. There's something wrong with the notion of love in a place where you can't talk. The polarization and vitriol on Capitol Hill is stunning. A place that is supposed to be the best of what we are as a nation has had a breakdown in civility. It is not just the red and the blue. As far as I'm concerned, it's a warning of a far more serious problem. If this is the best we can do in communications, we are stifling something that's important. I think that creativity is all bound up in love. You see, creativity is about giving out the best. Creativity helps us move forward as a species. Creativity is compassion. Creativity has to come from some wonderful universal concept that I'm going to call love. Justice, creativity, compassion, care, all values that we need to discuss. All values of this love that we're not talking about in this culture. All signs of decay. All problems. I was 7 years old when I saw Dr. Martin Luther King for the first time. He had come to Little Rock, Arkansas, where I grew up, and he was preaching at the Arch Street Baptist Church. This was back in 1954, 55. It was early in the civil rights movement. As a matter of fact, it was right out of the Montgomery bus boycotts. So whatever year that was, maybe the mid-50s. King had had a successful time in Montgomery. Rosa Parks had decided she was not going to sit at the back of the bus, and the movement was beginning. King was trying to get the word out that the world was changing and that we all had to be a part of it. So he went to his base, which is the church. I will never forget how exciting this time was. Everybody was going, King, King, King is here, King is here. My father was a preacher. He put me up in the balcony. He went down and sat with all the dignitaries. I thought this was Jesus coming. That's the only thing I could figure, because they were so excited. It was an electric time when this change was coming. Change that was really frightening, but change for something better. And King based his vision of change not on political movements, as he has been credited, not on socialism, but on his theology that the work we were doing in the world was defined as the kingdom of God. And he said the kingdom of God would be controlled by the law of love. Now, you see, we forget that. We think about King in a sentimental way. Every January, we pull out the I Have a Dream tape, and we think about it as just this kind of one-dimensional character. I was talking to Joseph Lowry over at the Kennedy Library not too long ago, and he talked about that I Have a Dream speech and King's idea of love. Right after that speech was given, the summer of '63 in Washington, D.C., 3 civil rights workers were slain. 4 little girls were bombed and killed in the basement of a church. There was nothing sentimental about the love that Dr. King talked about. He used love as a creative weapon. He knew that love could change the world. I don't like you, but I love you. I will the best for you because that's what you need. That was the basis of this nonviolent resistance of the civil rights movement. And the best part of that was King came to churches like the Arch Street Baptist Church, and he inspired porters and maids and people who had lived their lives going in the back door and getting on the back of the bus and cleaning up other people's messes. He inspired a little girl who was 6 or 7 years old that there was more to this world, and I had a responsibility to do something. All on this theology, this concept of love. And what he told people that love was that was something we were going to have to sacrifice for. And there was a risk to it. And you know, for one shining moment in history, it worked. It absolutely worked. And people in China saying, we shall overcome. And people in Eastern Europe saying, we shall overcome. And everybody caught the moment based on this notion of love as creative movement. Our work in Sudan is risky. And people say, well, why do you go over there when there's such a risk? And my answer is that it's the risk you take for love. Because I don't go there thinking that I'm going to really change the world in huge ways. I'm only one person. I don't go there thinking I'm some political giant. I have to go there on some passion from the inside that's more than just humanitarian. It has to be an inside job. And for me, it's love. Love is this sense of who is my neighbor? The world is my neighbor. It's about civility. It's about coming down the Southeast Expressway and being cut off and not flipping the bird, but maybe just saying, you know what? Good luck. It's about giving someone a look in the eye, just because you're human and I'm human too. And you know, it sounds like she's up there with this corny sermon, but it's so important, and we don't do it. So you in your classrooms, when you give your young people space to write and to imagine, you're giving them space for creativity, and you're giving them space for love. Of all the things that I have learned about love in Sudan, is that the Dinka children, the children with whom we work, are, as I said, marginalized children. They are poor. They have never been educated before. But the one thing that I think they have over us is they have a sense of kinship. When you go to Africa, to any country in Africa, there is usually a tribal kind of community setup. I belong to this tribe. This is my kinship. You hear in the media about all the tribal conflict. But what a tribe is, it says that you are a part of this. You are something special because you're a part of us. We belong to each other. We belong. So I would argue to you that the violence on the streets of Boston, the violence in the world, the violence, the vitriol, is that people don't have a sense or are confused about to whom we belong. Love is saying that we belong to each other. I cannot be my best until you're your best. And it's all connected. Martin Luther King reminded us that we are caught up in an inescapable network of mutuality tied to a single garment of destiny. What affects one of us directly affects all of us indirectly. We forget that, and so we always divide this world up into blue and red and us and them and right and wrong, and winner takes all. But I assure you, it really doesn't work that way. My first trip to Sudan, I wanted to take a news crew because I wanted to be a journalist and cover this story of slavery, which is what we had gone there to investigate, and genocide, which I didn't know at the time. And I went to my news director and I said, Peter, we've got to do this story in Sudan. He said, it's a great story, but we don't have the funds to pay for it. I said, Peter, you know, I think we should cover it. He said, well, we're a local television station and it's an international story. So I decided, because my life was changing, I decided I'd shoot it myself and take my own camera, and I did. And while we were there in the summer of 2001, we talked about slavery, and I interviewed people, and my camera was shaking as these women told me these awful stories. We talked about Bostonians trying to make a difference because I was with this group from Boston that was listening to the people. And we talked about a man named Osama bin Laden, who had built his terrorist network in Sudan. And I thought, this story is amazing. Now, people were hearing about Osama bin Laden that summer anyway because trials were underway for the embassy bombings in Kenya and Tanzania. But when I brought that story back, I said, Peter, I've got a story about terrorism. We have got to put it on the air. And Peter said, you know what? It's a great story. I'm glad you did it, but it's an international story. It's about them. And I said, Peter, come on, let me put... So we argued back and forth all the summer of 2001. And Peter finally decided to put my story on September 11th, 2001. And it never ran. And the lesson that Peter learned, and the lesson that I learned, was the things we say are them is us. The problems we say are theirs, they're ours. I can guarantee you that there is no us and them on earth. There is only us. And so my concept of love is about building community and having a sense that you belong. I think that's what our children need. I think that's what you do when you give them space like this, and when you teach them how to write, and when you inspire them to reach for the heights. I think that's what creativity is all about, our imagination, our ability to see things not as they are, but as they can be. But it all starts when somebody cares, when somebody is committed, when somebody is generous, when somebody is patient, when somebody's kind, when somebody's compassionate, when somebody gives love. So I've decided I'm going to re-preach my little sermons on love and hope that somebody is listening. I want children to know you are a child of the universe, no less than the trees and the stars, and you have a right to be here. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you, Liz. She is truly amazing. And our final speaker today is Carol Lang. Carol is a former English teacher, much like many of you in the audience. She's a publications advisor and past Journalism Education Association board member. Carol does freelance work for the Washington Post, Newseum, First Amendment Center, and the Radio Television Digital News Foundation. She is the co-author of a 4-year radio curriculum and the recipient of the 2008 JERA Carl Tarley Award, and is also the 1991 Dow Jones News Fund Journalism Teacher of the Year. In 2010, Carol visited Gansu Province in China to establish newspaper journalism programs in 5 high schools. Please welcome to the podium Carol Lang.
I'm joined by Brian Barron, who's been our Journalism Education Association Massachusetts State Director. Before I tell you a little bit about the Journalism Education Association, which I think you should all be members, I will take the opportunity to say that we definitely are, we, teachers across the world. In May and then again in August, I had the tremendous opportunity to take scholastic journalism to the Geographic Center of China and to meet with 3 to 4 teachers in 5 high schools in Gansu Province. These teachers told some of their students about this idea of beginning journalism class and creating newspapers. The students hearing about it begged that they could come also in May for the first introduction to journalism, and we had 8 students per high school come. In August, when we had achieved the support of the education director in China, the Communist Party leaders in Gansu Province, and each of the high schools that have principals and Communist Party leaders, we taught our 28 lessons to teachers, and another of my partners in journalism, a younger teacher who's real savvy with technology, worked with over 40 students who were eager to learn what you teach your students, to have the opportunity to have a voice and to be able to literally put on paper ideas and news about their schools, to be the first to write an editorial about something that they cared about within their school community, to draw editorial cartoons and see it published. We had an exciting time, and I can tell you that in the 5 high schools, 3 in Lanzhou, 1 in Beiying, and 1 up by the border of Mongolia in Jianye, we have over 50 students on each of those journalism staffs. 3 of the 5 schools have produced their first newspapers and have sent me their PDFs of those issues. And I just want to tell you that the excitement that you can engender among your students is worldwide. Those students are so excited by this opportunity. They go to school from 8 to noon, have a 2-hour break for lunch and a nap, teachers included, come back from 2 to 6 o'clock, and after 6 o'clock, they have their 40 to 60 minute, 2 times a week journalism class. So again, I applaud you for what you're doing, and I hope that you would join me in telling your students that they are part of this international desire for youth to tell about their world and to express their ideas. I'm very proud to be a member of the Journalism Education Association. That was my support when I was a young advisor. And I'm also here to say that you can advise for 30 years and survive and love every day of it. And Brian is also going to join us to tell you a little bit about the Journalism Education Association. We have members in every single state. We have members in Canada, in South Korea, Germany, Indonesia, and actually in China also. We are there as a Journalism Education Association to provide support, education and resources, and teacher and student recognition. Our teachers are print and broadcast journalists, newspaper advisors, yearbook advisors, literary art magazine advisors, working with online publications. We have a listserv that's very active for members so that you can ask your questions, find out answers, especially if you're on deadline and something terrible has gone wrong with the computer, the printer, or other parts of technology, and get responses from teachers who've handled that situation before. We also have a quarterly publication that provides wonderful support. Your membership also connects you to the Student Press Law Center, and we get $5 of each of each membership, which is a medicine to our souls and our First Amendment livelihood. Brian, tell us about some more of our JEA.
My name is Brian Barron. I'm one of the newspaper advisors at Newton South High School, and I'm the outgoing JEA State Director. So I'm happy to handle any of your questions, and the current JEA State Director is Colleen Gachik from Situate High School. So she's also a great resource. Just a couple of quick things that JEA can provide for you that I think will be interesting. They have a bookstore, one of the best compendiums of journalism books around, and you get a 10% discount with your membership. I think Carol handed out some flyers for each table. You can look at some of the books that they have there. And one of the best resources that I know of to teach kids about journalism is the annual conventions. They do two conventions every year, one east of the Mississippi in the fall, and then one out west in the spring. Next week's is going to be in Kansas City, and then the spring is in Anaheim. And I think there's a flyer on your table about that. Basically what this involves is about 5,000 or 6,000 high school journalists from around the country and the world in a hotel for 4 or 5 days. And that may or may not be your particular version of heaven, but it certainly is a great way to learn about journalism, and especially for a group like ours that is all after school. We don't have a course. It's one of the few times during the course of the year where we have a chance to really sit down and focus on what we're doing and not just putting out a publication. So anyway, I'd encourage you to join JEA. It's a great organization. This business of newspaper advising can be very isolating, and I think we need to do whatever we can to reach out and to show love to each other while we do it. So this conference and the organizations are good ways to do that. So thank you.
Well, that concludes our formal luncheon program. I want to remind everybody that we still have desserts, coffee, and I want to thank all of you for taking the time out of your busy work schedules to take your students to UMass Boston today. I know that it's your individual effort that got those students here. I have a daughter at Andover High School, and I was happy to see we had Andover High School here, and I just felt like, you know, when it finally touches you even as a parent that you're in a school system where the teachers look for opportunities for your students to get even more than what the school system has to offer, it really is a motivating factor, and it really does say something special about the professionalism and the educational support that kids receive in these schools. So I thank each and every one of you for coming to UMass Boston. Please don't think of this as the once-a-year only time to come. We have numbers of programs we do all year. We do special leadership days for students that are designed for particular high schools. And it's like a little mini conference that we can set up with individual schools if you'd like to come again with more students. So please use this as a resource. There's nothing more important than giving our youth the gift of an education. and we want to be partners with you in helping to accomplish that. Thank you very much, and have a safe ride home.